Welcome everybody into WAC All Access. We have a new guest today, Dr. Ronald Chamberlain, the Director of Counseling and Sports Psychology at Dixie State. How are you, Dr. Chamberlain?
I'm doing well, thank you. I appreciate it.
How's the St. George area?
It's great. It's sunny and warm like always, so good place to be.
Good. Well, it is Mental Health Awareness Week, and we appreciate you hopping on to talk about this. What are some things that student athletes and just students in general that can do to help with their mental health?
Well, I think that's a great question, because I think part of helping people with mental health is what can we do to help people stay well that are already well. And, you know, I think some of the basic things that your grandma might have told you when you were a little kid of make sure you get plenty of sleep, eat well, take care of your body, live with some balance. I think that's a big one for student athletes, though, is the college sports require such a big commitment that it's hard to sometimes find the balance in life. And I think that's a huge part of maintaining mental health is carving out some time to make sure you're taking care of yourself and your relationships in addition to your schooling and sport. So I think things like that are really important. And then just living mindfully engaged, being behaviorally active in your classes, in your life. I think all of those things really help. So,
Grandma always knows best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm married to one, so I know.
In your years regarding mental health, how have you seen the awareness continue to grow?
Well, that's a great question. So I originally started in this field back in 1996, so that dates me a little bit. But back then, I was one of a handful of providers that was actually housed in an athletic department providing mental health services to student athletes. And to watch the growth over the last 20 years or so has been phenomenal. And I think that's attributed to a number of things. I think athletic departments tend to be competitive with one another, and as they found out that this department has someone to help their athletes, well, we need to have that too, and so that competition I think helped. But certainly I think the biggest help has come from the NCAA itself. The NCAA and Sports Science Institute has put out some great stuff on their website and handbooks for athletic departments to guide them in developing mental health programs. Dr. Brian Hainline, the chief medical officer for the NCAA, this has become a priority for him and has been, and that's done tremendous amounts of good in building this for athletic departments. So I think it's great. I think most schools now have at least someone in their counseling center on campus that's appointed or a liaison with athletics, and many others even have someone in-house like myself, and I think that that's been tremendous to watch that growth.
What's the biggest misconception that you feel people feel about mental health?
Well, for me, working in athletics, there's a couple of them. One is that student athletes don't need mental health services. They're already mentally tough and they're strong and they work out. They don't need any help. But the reality is they're human just like anyone else. And we know about 1 in 5 student athletes struggle with mental health issues. So to put that in perspective, if you have 500 athletes in your athletic department, that's about 100 student athletes during the course of a year may struggle with things like depression and anxiety and other mental health issues. So I think that's one of the big misconceptions. Another is that often you can see when someone's having a problem. And, you know, one of the strengths of a good student athlete is they're mentally tough and they're able to function and not show their emotions in the heat of the battle. Sometimes that works against them, though, when they're struggling with a mental health issue, because people around them don't even really know, because they're able to put on that happy face and be productive and get things done, even though they're really suffering and struggling. So those are a couple of the big misconceptions. And then the last one that I think really hits home for me is that it's not, you're either mentally healthy or you're not. I think mental health and wellness is on a continuum, and at any one time, we're going to be moving along that continuum. So some days we're doing great and we're thriving. Other days we're stressed a little bit, but still doing okay. And then there are some times we have episodes where we're really struggling. And so just realizing that just because you're doing well today doesn't mean you're going to do great tomorrow. And at any point in time, we could all benefit from some mental health counseling. So,
what are some ways that anybody can check on their own mental health, though?
Well, things I watch for are how well are you functioning? Everyone's going to have their ups and downs. There are good days, there are not so good days. But are you able to still function? Go to work, go to your classes, go to practice. Are you functioning? Are you socially connected and engaged? I think if you're doing those things, then you're probably doing okay. But and then just being honest with yourself about just where you're at with your motivation and your energy levels and your emotions. Because I think I kind of give the analogy a lot that if you're driving your car and the check engine light comes on, what do? Well, you don't just keep driving, right? Sometimes our emotions are kind of like that too. So if we're feeling a lot of anxiety, I think it's time to kind of check that engine light and say, okay, why am I so anxious? And is this something that I can kind of manage on my own, or do I maybe need to seek out help to help me lower this level of anxiety?
How important is to talk about mental health?
I think it's really critical in our day and age, because we want to normalize that if you struggle with mental health issue, it's fine. It's part of being human. And if an athlete pulls a hamstring or rolls their ankle, it's not a big deal to go see the athletic trainer. We want to get to the same point eventually where if someone's depressed or anxious or struggling with an eating disorder, something like that they feel comfortable talking to their mental health provider in the same way. So I think anything we can do, like we're doing today during Mental Health Awareness Week, to normalize mental health issues and then promote help-seeking behavior, I think is really important. And actually the WAC, the Student Athlete Advisory Council, came up with a couple of mental health recommendations this last year that were approved. And one is that student athletes have access to mental health counseling resources on their campuses. And then second is they're educated about how to access those services when they need them. And I think hopefully all our providers throughout the WAC are doing a good job right now of educating student athletes to know how to seek out help when they need it.
A lot of student athletes took to Twitter after Dallas Cowboy quarterback Dak Prescott announced that he had suffered with his own mental health after his brother had committed suicide.
Yes.
How important is it to see stars in bigger roles come out and admit to those types of things?
I think it's huge. Even here at Dixie State, I met with our football team just in a team meeting a while back, and I brought that up. There was a nice article on it in the USA Today sports section, and I brought it up, and we talked openly about it. And I think when the college athletes see professional athletes stepping forward, or Olympic level athletes stepping forward and saying, hey, I've struggled and I'm seeking help and it's okay, I think that just makes it even more okay for them to do it too, because these are role models that are great on the performance stage, but also human in their life. And I think that goes a long way to normalizing what it is we're trying to work on.
Well, Dr. Chamberlain, thank you so much for hopping on with me. I appreciate it. And hopefully anyone who's dealing with mental health can obviously get help, and we can just bring awareness to this topic.
You're welcome, Rachel. Thank you for doing this. I think this is another opportunity to get the word out and continue to promote the awareness and get people focused on the right things. So thank you.
Absolutely. That's Dr. Ronald Chamberlain at Dixie State University. I'm Rachel Vigil. Thanks for tuning into WAC All Access.